Guys, Lauria from the Author Incubator. Thank you so much for signing up for the webinar a couple days ago. I wanted to make this quick video because I've been getting so many emails from you guys, and I'm so sorry I can't answer them all personally. I've been trying to reply, and if you have been waiting for a reply, this is it. With my apologies. What I've noticed about the emails that have been coming in is that they really fall into three buckets. And I'm sort of saying the same thing in my replies. So I wanted to take some time to tell you the main three concerns that I'm hearing from people who are writing to me saying, I know I have a book in me. I know I have an important message to get out to people, and these are really the three things they're saying with their big but of why they haven't gotten their book done, and they're asking me what I think they should do about that. Or they're telling me, I know I need to get over this, but I don't know how to get over it. So the top three reasons that people don't write a book. Okay, the first thing, the number one thing, and you guys are so cute. But the number one thing is there's not enough time. You just all say it in very clever ways. So I'm going to talk about how to deal with that if time is what's coming up for you. The next thing I hear, and again, you guys use all different ways to say this, but the real theme behind it is, I'm not quite ready, but I'm going to come back to you. These are the people who are in the, Angela, you're on my vision board club. So we'll talk about that if you're not quite ready. And then the third thing is, I'm just not a good enough writer. And that shows up in a bunch of different ways too. So I want to take a minute, go through each of those. Maybe they all come up for you, maybe one more than another. But by far, all of the emails that are coming in, I can sort of segment them into these three buckets. So for people who say there's not enough time, here are some of the ways this shows up. I just started Master Coach training and I really want to write a book with you, but I can't do it till after Master Coach training. Or I know I'm going to write a book with you, but I have a trip planned for my husband. It's our 25th wedding anniversary. We've been waiting forever for this trip. I have my wedding coming up. I have some health issues right now, so I'm super busy with doctor's appointments. But once everything calms down, my kids are about to go, my oldest is about to go off to college once my kid goes back to college. So there's all these once stories. And I know when you write them, you really believe them. And sometimes, I'm going to be totally honest, sometimes I fall for it. I'll read the email, I'm like, oh, this person really is too busy. But I want to tell you a story of my client, Joyce. So Joyce wrote to me and she said, hey, I think I'm too busy to write a book, but I really want to write a book for nurses dealing with burnout. I've been a nurse for a long time. I recently left my job nursing, and I have enrolled in a full-time coaching program. I'm doing a PhD, and I've signed up for a chaplaincy program. And so I think I'm going to be too busy to write a book. Well, sure enough, it took Joyce about 90 days to write a book, just like everyone else. One of my other clients, Janine, says, if you want something done, ask a busy person. So if you think you're too busy, it probably means you're exactly the right amount of busy to actually get a book done. I actually think it's easier to write a book if you're busy, and I'll tell you why. I've had people writing a book with us who didn't have to work. They had insurance settlements, or they had an inheritance, and they had 3 months unencumbered to write their book. I've had a couple people go on vacation to write their book and spend 3 months in Bali, or where was somebody else? 3 months in, I don't know, somewhere, not in the desert in California, but I think in the mountains in California somewhere. People will go away and they'll do nothing else. Now, if you're that lucky, and that sounds fun to you, great, but you should know that it will actually be harder to write your book that way. And the story that I tell to explain this is about when I had a kid who had to be picked up from school. He was in aftercare, and he had to be picked up from school at 6 o'clock, which meant I had to leave my house at like 5:25. I almost always left at 5:30, but I really had to leave the house to get him to actually park, to get inside, to sign the form, to do everything. I really had to leave by 5:25. So at the beginning of the day, I would make myself this list of things to do, and then somehow I'd do everything else. I'd do an extra load of laundry. A neighbor would come over and ask me to, like, I don't know, move a stump. I'd move a stump. I don't know what the hell I was doing, but the whole day would go by. And sometime around 4:30 or 5, I would panic about the fact that another day was gone and I had to leave in half an hour to pick my kid up from daycare. So I'd look at my to-do list for the day, I would pick out the most important item, and then I would bang that out in like 30 minutes. Now, I will tell you, I was very often 5 to 10 minutes leaving, and I paid a lot of those extra fees for daycare pickup. But I noticed that when I had an actual deadline and a limited amount of time, I could do these really impressive projects in a very short amount of time. Most people, you can go test this right now, most people who work with me can write about 1,000 words in an hour. You can test this. Just set a timer for like 15 minutes. I usually do this with a 30-minute test, but set a timer for 15 minutes, write without picking your pen up off the table. Get your word count. It'll be something like 250 words. Multiply it times 4, and that's your capacity for writing per hour. I bet you'll find you write at least 1,000 words per hour. Now, most books that we publish are between 25 and 35,000 words. So if you're writing 1,000 words an hour, that's 25 to 35 hours. Now, 1,000 words an hour is not writing at breakneck speed for most people. That's sort of the floor. So you really can write a book even faster than that once you identify your word per hour count. I'm going to show you what I mean by different word counts. So this book right here, this is about a 25,000 word book, and it is, I'm going to give you a page count if I can find one. So this book is about 20,000 words, and it's 110 pages. Now, this book, sorry, I'm crossing in front of the camera. This book, this nice fat one here by Rachel Telton, who runs Flourish. This is 66,000 words, and her book is about 340 pages. So your page count is very different depending on the design. My book, The Difference, actually both of my books, The Difference and The Incubated Author, they're 32,000 words and about 200 pages. So your book, depending on how much you have to say in your book, but your book, if it's around 35,000 words, will be around 200 pages, and it will take you 30 to 40 hours to write. Everything else is BS. Everything else is made up story. I know it feels real. Your daughter's wedding, your uncle's funeral, the hot water heater breaking, there's construction in your neighborhood. I got all of it. I've heard it all. But not enough time is really just a way of saying to the universe, I don't want to write a book. And if you can say, I don't want to write a book, that is so much more empowered than pretending there's some time problem when there really isn't. You aren't too busy to write a book. You might be not busy enough, because if it was important, you would do it. So my main critique for people who say there's not enough time to write a book is, do you have a system that will teach you how to be efficient with your time, as opposed to just saying there's not enough time? If you've got 40 hours over the next 2-3 months, we can get a book done. It's totally reasonable. I have lots of people who've done it. And by the way, Joyce did get her book done, her nurse burnout book. That is available on Amazon. And not only that, she did a great job in her chaplaincy program. She's still doing her entrepreneurship degree, and she's still in coach training. So she's really found a way to balance it all and create this new life. But there's another issue that I want to talk about why you're so busy if it is getting all those degrees and certifications, because I'm not quite ready yet is another one of the buckets that I've heard about. So I'm not quite ready. I'm going to be ready for you. You're on my vision board. Next year, I'm definitely going to write a book. Usually comes down to a few things. I need to get my website done first. No, you don't. I need to finish my chaplaincy PhD program, master coaching certification. I need to have more expertise in this certain area, and it's usually something very technical like science or nutrition. Like I need to get a nutrition degree before I can write a book. I have to have a PhD. I have to have these letters after my name. And I want to go get more information first. Oh, here's another, this one's a doozy. If this is you, just please know when I get your emails, I just laugh. I want to interview 100 people for my book. Once those interviews are done, I'm going to come back to you. Like, don't come back to me then, because I can't work with you with those 100 interviews. That is not serving anyone. That is you trying to hide between other people you think are awesome. How about you just be awesome? I got you. If we have some places in your manuscript where we need to go get quotes, we'll find the right person to interview and we'll interview them. If you have any friends who are investigative journalists, they don't just interview 100 people. They figure out what the story is and they go find a source to address those particular points in the story that need support. 100 interviews is just going to drive you mad. You're going to have transcripts to high heaven. You're going to be listening to hundreds of hours of calls. It's like a 2 to 3 year project with no real meaningful results from it. Most people I know who go do the 100 interview thing, they end up never finishing their book. Go look out there if you're not one of them. I bet you will find people who did 100 interviews and never wrote their book. What makes you ready is a 100% serious commitment to actually helping people, to dropping your BS, to dropping the stories, to dropping the crutch of I'm not good enough, and saying right now there's one person who I could help. And if that person were to walk in the room, let's say 5 years from now, and they've had the worst 5 years of their life, and they were to look you in the eye and say to you, why didn't you write this book sooner? What would you tell them? I wanted to do another certification course. I was trying to interview 100 people before I helped you. When you think about the real people out there that you can help with your message, who are you not to be ready? Who are you not to step up and do this work? You know, sometimes we forget when we're in this spiritual world, in this coaching world, these tools we know about how to create the life we want. We can forget how most of the planet is living. And if you are somebody who feels like you aren't quite ready, I encourage you to find your local motor vehicle department, because everybody needs a driver's license. Everybody goes to the motor vehicle department. And I want you to walk in there and look at everyone in that room and tell me how many people in that room do you think know the tools and the secrets that are in your heart. And then tell me again why you want to hold this and keep this for yourself. Why you aren't out there making a difference with where you are right now for the people coming up behind you. Because I'll tell you, at my DMV, there is a lot of pain and suffering. And if there's any way I can be a part of helping that, that is why I am alive right now. That's why I've been given this rarefied air to breathe. It's to help bring everyone up. Everyone. This isn't for us to keep ourselves. All right, last reason, and I've kind of combined a couple here, but they show up very cleverly because you all are sneaky, especially the smart ones. I see all of you really smart ones. So usually it starts off with an email about how their third grade teacher said that they would never be a writer, they weren't a very good enough writer, or they've applied at the authorincubator.com/apply, they put their application in, they put their writing submission in, but they're afraid I'm not going to think it's good enough, they're not going to measure up to the other authors at the Author Incubator at Difference Press. And so it'll be a lot about grammar and construction. Sometimes people have a story about English as a second language. That's a really nice thing for you to rely on. By the way, we have lots of people who are writing in English as their second language. Shout out to Nora from Romania and so many of our other non-native English-speaking authors. And so if you think you are not a good enough writer, I'm sure you have collected lots of evidence for it. But when I probe a little bit deeper about where that's coming from, it comes back to no one's going to care what I have to say. Who's going to care about my little life, about my little experience, about my little story? And the idea that if you were a better writer, people would care is this really nice twisty little tale. Like, Elizabeth Gilbert's life is just as boring as mine, but she's a good writer, so people care about what she has to say. Like, if only I had this craft perfected, then my meager stories would be enough to heal the world. Well, let me just tell you, it is not about being a good enough writer, and I will give you my favorite piece of evidence, which is the delightful trilogy, 50 Shades of Grey, written by E.L. James. Yes, I have read every single word. It is so horribly written. Like, go read any page. Go on Amazon. Read any page. I guarantee you, you are a better writer. Oh my God. I don't know how did that escape from anyone. It's so bad. It's so very, very bad. And yet, that book has changed millions of lives, maybe tens of millions of lives. So you don't have to be a good writer to change lives. Richard Kiyosaki, the guy who wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. First of all, that book isn't super well written, and he talks about it all the time. He's like, I'm a terrible writer. I was a dropout in high school. I was a C student before that. Like, I never worked on my writing. What I worked on was my message. Your writing will get better. If you work with us, we have an amazing team of editors. I teach you how to find great people to work with to support your work. I'm not worried about your writing. I'm worried about your heart. Because if you are here to serve, if you are here to lift this planet up with a message of hope, healing, or transformation, we can get your writing there. But you have to know the people who care about what you have to say aren't people who want to watch you gaze at your navel. They're people who are in pain like you were and who need your message to climb out of a hole. And sometimes those are minor problems and sometimes they're major problems, but all of our authors are addressing some piece of healing. That's why you're afraid you're not a good enough writer, because that thought, that reason is keeping you from doing the exact work you were born to do. And if you are watching this video right now, that is absolutely the work you were born to do. So I'm sorry I can't write to each of you personally, but I wanted to make this video. I hope you can see how this relates to you and that you can really tie in these answers and make the decision for yourself. Super clean. Just an honest yes or an honest no. I don't want to write a book, or I do want to write a book. If you want to write a book, these answers, why don't I have a red pen? These, if you want to write a book, they do not exist. These do not exist. They only exist when you don't want to write a book. And I just want you to be able to look people in the eye and say, I don't want to write a book, super clean, because that creates a space for someday in the future when you might. But the lies you're telling yourself about this, that's what's keeping you small.